Yeah.
So who's there with Stacy?
Pardon?
Who's there with you, Stacy?
Oh, it's just Raya. I'm just gonna sit in and rewatch this.
Gotcha. Okay. All righty. So I am going to go through AppFiles. AppFiles is our transaction management system. So this is where all of our files are kept. We no longer have paper files. Everything's done. I mean, you individuals might have paper files, but as a company, we don't anymore. So this is where you access your contract or your listing paperwork, where you fill it out. You can get electronic signatures right through this system if you want to, so you don't need a separate system like DocuSign. And it's where you're going to turn in your files for compliance, because we, as the brokerage, have to make sure that we have all the required documents required by the state and by our E&O company and by our risk management team. All this is done within this one system. So we're going to go ahead and review the system now. It's called AppFiles. There is a contrary to its name, there's no app for AppFiles. So you won't download any kind of app. It's actually just an online website. So you can access it from anywhere. So if you're on a mobile device, you can also get into AppFiles and do work if you need to. And it is just simply appfiles.com. So you can go to appfiles.com and hit the login and then make that a favorite on your computer or on your phone or tablet or whatever you like to use. Everyone logs in using their email address. I use my account because I have all this kind of stuff in here set up for training. So that's why I use mine. But if you can't get into yours, make sure you let me know and we'll work it. So we'll fix it so that you can get in. Is everyone able to see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So, and I'm going to hide. I have a little bar here that I need to hide because it bugs me. Okay, so this is the home page of AppFiles, and I like to kind of show you what goes on here. So this is, your hub. This is where you can track all activities for all of your files. On the right-hand side here, these are your recent files. These are files that you've been working on recently, so you can get into them very quickly. You're currently working in there, so instead of having to search or go somewhere to find your files, they're just right here on the right-hand side, and you can just pop in and out of those files automatically. Now, know that just because a file closes doesn't mean that it's automatically going to come off of this new app file. It's still kind of a new file. It's a working file. So it'll just be pushed out as you add new files to your recent files. Along the middle here, we have a task section. These are tasks that are associated with each of your transaction files. Now, the tasks are mostly created by the staff. So when you turn in a file for review, and we're going to go through this process, of course, but when the staff determines that there's something that needs to be done to the file, they're going to create a task. The task is viewable inside the file, but it's also viewable here on your home page. So the task section on your home page lists all the tasks that are due for all of your files. So if you have you've put aside an hour or two one morning to kind of catch up on all of the paperwork, you can come straight to this task section and you can just bang out those tasks, for all of the files. The middle here is all of your activity. I see all activity for everything, so that's why it's so active for my homepage. But this is all of your activity for your files. If you're sending emails, if you're sending signature requests, if you're changing file types, if you're communicating with the staff, all of that stuff, or communicating with your team members, all of that stuff is going to be shown right here in the middle on your homepage. On the left-hand side, I like to show in this settings section right here, there's not a lot that has to be done to set up your AppFiles account. It's basically ready to use as soon as you get that little email. But there is one thing that you might want to set up, and that is your email footer. When you're emailing out of AppFiles, whether it be just to send copies of documents to people or to send requests for electronic signatures, there will be an email footer that goes at the bottom of all of those emails that you send out of AppFiles. And this is where you can set that email footer up so that it's ready to populate for all of those emails. So this is kind of a one-time thing. You do it one time and then it will just use that footer every time that you send out an email, just like you do in your own email account. In order to set up this email, you first have to have an email footer or an email signature set up already in your current email system. Whether you're using Gmail or some other type of system, you should have an email signature already set up, because what AppFiles does is it exactly duplicates that email signature that you're already using. And that way, when people receive these emails from you from AppFiles, they look exactly like the emails that you've already been sending to them.
Do you
So
have templates of that we can use being new to Remax?
I don't have any templates, but I use a program that's a plugin for Gmail called Wise Stamp, WISESTAMP. It has quite a few templates that you can use, and it plugs in and works with Gmail. But
Okay,
there,
great.
you can find templates online, and also if you want a really fancy email signature created with like graphics or pictures or things like that, you can ask our marketing department. They can create something for you that you can just pop in for your account. Now, to get this email footer set up in AppFiles, when you go, let's do it again, in the settings section here in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to find email footer on the left and click on that. When you do, you're going to see a very unique, crazy looking email address. This is an email address. This is unique to your account. So my little address here looks different than yours will. And what I want you to do is click on this copy button right here to copy this weird email address. So we're going to copy that address, and it says that it has been copied. Now we're going to go to our email program, whatever it is that we use to send emails, and we are going to compose a new email. So we're just going to compose. You can see this is the email signature that I currently use in my email. In the to section, we are going to right click and paste that crazy email address that we copied from our AppFiles account. So we clicked on the copy button in AppFiles, and now we're going to come in and right click and paste that address. Now don't put anything in the subject line, don't put anything in the body of the email, just simply hit the send button, and AppFiles is going to grab that email footer off of that email that you sent and populate it into your account for you. So it just grabs it and puts it there for you, and now you don't have to recreate anything. It'll just duplicate what you're already using. Okay. Now, that's really the only thing that I say that you have to do for setting up your account. Also, along the left-hand side here, I like to show this feature, which is called Print Blank Forms. Print Blank Forms gives you access to our entire forms library without having to be in a transaction file. It also lets you look at the entire form, because when you're in a transaction file and you're adding forms, you're able to preview, but you're only able to see the first page of a form. So if you need to really review a form, if there's something that you're not, if you're not familiar with, you can just go to Print Blank Forms. You can start typing in what the form would be, and then you can open it up and look at the entire form if you need to review it, or see if this is the form that you want to use in this particular scenario. The form I'm showing here is the contract information sheet. This is a form that is required every time that you write an offer or contract. So this tells our accounting department how the commission is supposed to be distributed. So without this form, they aren't able to prepare your commission, because they need all of this information in order to do that. Now, the second page of this form is the checklist of the required documents. So this is for compliance. When you turn in your file to be reviewed by the staff, these are the forms that they're going to be looking for to make your file complete. Now, I know it looks like a lot of forms. And by the way, this is just for a contract file. There is another form called the listing information sheet that is going to have the checklist of required forms for a listing file. This one is just for a contract. But if you look, not all of these forms are going to be applicable all the time. So even though this looks like a long list of forms, only a handful of them are really going to be applicable for any particular contract file. So for example, you would not have a homeowners association rider and a condo rider, or maybe either of them, depending on the scenario. So it would, this would not apply you would not have that form unless it applies. Same thing with flood zone, same thing with lead-based paint, FHA, VA. So these are all things for different scenarios. But this is what you can use as a guide to make sure that you've got all the correct documents in the file that are required. The other thing that I like to point out, just to show you, is this buyer's real property agreement. This is what we call the cover your butt addendum. Okay, so all agents that are working with a buyer, they're writing an offer, the buyers need to review and sign this disclosure. So if you're familiar with the FAR contracts, there are, gosh, I think there's probably over 20 addenda that goes with those contracts. So our risk management team, our broker, our in-house attorney, they went through all of those addenda and they decided that there are certain ones that are really necessary that you use with your buyers to keep you out of liability and minimize any kind of issues. So all of those were kind of coordinated into one massive disclosure for buyers, and that's what this is. Now, I'm not a forms person. I'm not the person that you ask about what forms to use or how to fill out your forms. I'm a systems person. I kind of tell you how to do those things, but I do like to show this form because it is a required form and it is a mass disclosure. So this takes a lot of those individual disclosures and it puts them all into the one big one. It includes the $295 transaction fee that's going to be passed on to your buyers. The last 2 pages of this are the disclosures that are required for our affiliated businesses, which is our title and our mortgage company. So because we have these companies and they are owned by us, the state requires that we have to disclose this to every one of our clients, whether or not they even intend to use those businesses. So we are required to disclose to everybody that we have a title company and that we have a mortgage company. So they have to sign these disclosures. They're not required to use them. They just need to know that we have them and that they're affiliated with us. Okay, so there's a little bit of a peek into some of our forms, but you can review all forms under this print blank form section. You have search options to search for files. So if you're looking for something that's not in the recent section over here on the right, you can search for those files. And you also have a My AppFiles tab up at the top here that gives you access to every single file from the beginning of time. So we started using this system in 2015. We have every file from 2015 inside this. Of course, you only have access to your own files. And then finally, I like to point out this signature request tab at the top here. So we're sending out signature requests all the time for electronic signatures. And when you go through the process of creating an offer and you're waiting for that signature to come back, you're kind of anticipating, you're watching and waiting for that notification. But a lot of times during the course of a transaction, we send out a one-off form here or there that needs to be signed. And so once you send that form off, you kind of check it off your to-do list. Okay, I sent this, I'm on to my next task. And you kind of forget to watch and make sure that it was actually signed and it is now in the file as a signed file form. So this is going to show you any signature request that you currently have out for signature and that has not been signed yet. And this is going to show you every form from every transaction. So as you're working multiple transactions, you'll be able to see all of the things from all of your transactions that are out for signature. So if you need to, you can resend it, the email straight from here, like I'm surprised they haven't signed this yet, I'm going to resend it. Or if they maybe printed it and signed it and sent it back to you, you can go ahead and cancel that signature request because you don't need it anymore. So that signature request tab at the top is a great way for you to keep track of all of the things that you're sending out from signatures from your files. Okay, so what we're going to do is I like to teach this by going through an entire scenario because it just helps you. This is how you're going to use the system. So this is how I train on it. I use a buyer scenario because that helps me to show you all of the features of the system. So in our scenario, you know, we worked with a buyer, they want to write an offer on a property. We tell them, you know, to go, go have lunch or go home and I'll prepare all of the documents and send them to you. Now, Rhea and Stacy, you guys would be notified probably by your team members. Hey, I'm working with this buyer. They're going to write an offer. Can you prepare the file and start preparing the paperwork for me? So, that's the scenario that we're working with. When you're creating a file, the first thing you need to do is click on this green Create New App File button. New app files are created per transaction, and the transactions are for a specific property. So if you're writing an offer on your own listing or a listing for your team, you're not going to create a new transaction file for that listing. You already have a file in the account for the listing for the property. So you're just going to go into that same file and then pull in the offer paperwork and fill it out inside that file. You're going to create new files for new property transactions. So if you're working with these buyers, you write an offer on a property, you create the file, you do all the paperwork, you send it off, but the offer is not accepted or it just never closes, then you're working with the same buyers and you write an offer on a new property. You have to create a new transaction file for that new property, even though you've already worked with these buyers. So every file is a new property and a new transaction for that property. When you have a listing file, by the way, you'll create a listing file. You'll turn in that listing file so that all of the listing paperwork can be reviewed and that file can be made a good file for your listing. And then when you get a contract on that listing, you're going to put all of the listing paperwork in that, the contract paperwork in that same file and turn it in again so that it can be reviewed for the contract paperwork. So when you have a listing file, you're going to turn it in. It's going to be reviewed twice. Once for the listing paperwork, once for the contract paperwork. When you're working with a buyer, you're only going to turn it in one time and it's going to have all the contract paperwork. Now, the first thing that we're looking here is the file name. We need you to put the address of the property in the file name because that's how we find your files. Okay, and then in addition to the property address, you might want to put maybe your client's name or anything else that helps you find the file. Because if a year from now that client reaches out to you and says, hey, can you send me, my HUD statement from the file? I seem to have lost mine. You're probably not going to remember the address of the property, but you're going to know that client's name. So you can put whatever else you need to put in there to help you find that file in the future. But we definitely need to have the property address in the file name. Now we're going on to the file type here. You have a drop-down menu. I have a lot more file type options available than you do. But when you're starting a file, you are always going to start it in your own agent workspace here. The agent workspace is where you're just working in files. There's nothing executed. There's nothing that needs to be turned in for review yet. It's just a work in progress. So we're going to keep the files that we're starting in our own agent workspace. And most of the time, you're just going to be doing a buyer or a seller file. Now, if you wanted to practice and you don't want to get into any current files, you can always create a test file and then get in there and really start working in the system before you have an actual file. For our scenario, I'm going to use buyers. So I'm creating a buyer file. If you had a listing file, you would create a seller file. This information that is here, it is up to you whether or not it is worth it to you to put this information in here or not. Whatever you put into these fields, it doesn't transfer to any paperwork. It's just a single place for you to keep this information in case you need it for reference. So for example, if you're writing an offer, most likely that property is going to be listed in MLS. You might want to keep note of the MLS number of that listing because you might need to access that information in MLS again. So it would be helpful for you to have the MLS number of that property. If it's not helpful, don't worry about it. You don't have to fill out anything in this section if it's not helpful to you. Once you do fill out any of this information, you're going to click on this green Next button down here in the corner. This is going to be very important for you guys because you're all on teams. So in order for you to have access to each other's files, you need to provide that access here. So there's no way for us to automatically link all the files for all team members. So you need to give your team members access to your files. This is how you're going to do it. On the left-hand side is a list of all the agents in your office. You're just going to click on the name of the agent that needs to have access to this file, and they will come, you'll see them come over here on the right, and the list of people who do have access to the file. So you just go through and click and give your team members access, and they will show up over here on the right-hand side. Then when they log into their AppFiles account, they would be able to access the file and work in it or do whatever they need to do in that file. On the right-hand side here, you see people who already have access. The people that are listed here are our management and our staff. So we always have access to all of your files. It's really important to know, though, that we have over 300 agents in our company, and luckily all of us are not receiving notifications when these agents are all creating files, because that would make us crazy. So even though you're creating this file and even though we have access to it, we don't know the file exists until you tell us. So if you need help, you would need to tell me, hey, Karen, can you look at this file for me? Or if you need to, if Gail needs to look at the file or one of the administrators, then you need to follow the procedures that turn the file in so that she knows it's there and that she needs to look at it. And of course, we'll go through how that's done. So once you give access to your file to your team members, you're going to click on this green Create App File button right down here at the bottom, and it's going to open up your file to begin working in. I'm going to go in and grab my training file. Okay, now when you open up your training file, it's going to be blank. There's not going to be anything in there. I have loaded mine up with all kinds of stuff for training, so that's why it's here. And in fact, I've even forgotten to take out some of my stuff that I put in here last time. This section right here is where that information displays that I told you when we were creating the file. If it's worthwhile to you to keep track of it, go ahead and put it in there. If not, don't worry about it. So when you're creating the file, if you didn't have this MLS number at the tip of your brain, or it wasn't available to you right at that moment, you can always click on the edit button and you can put it in there after the fact, or you can enter any of this information after the fact if you want to. So if you need to add stuff to this section, you certainly can do that then. Also, if you have files that maybe your team members are working in currently and now they need to add you as a user so you can help them with them, you can always come here to the Add User section after you've created a file and add people then as well. So if you didn't do it when you created the file or need to do it after the fact, you can always add users right here in this section. If you need to remove users, you can go ahead and click on this little X next to their name, and that will remove them from your file so that they no longer have access. Now, I'm going to real quick get rid of this information I put here, even though I'm just going to put it right back in, but I want to show you how it's done. This was a fail on my part after my last training. Okay, so the very first thing that you want to do whenever you create a new file is to come here to the content forms that are provided by AppFiles. If you had created a seller file, which is a listing, then you would have a listing content form and a contract content form, because eventually you're going to get a contract on that listing. Since we created a buyer file, we just have the contract content form. When you're putting information in this content form, once you put information in there or type it in there, you never type it again throughout the course of the transaction. When we're filling out forms, we're going to use this content and just populate it into our forms. So this makes it the easiest and the fastest way for you to fill out forms in this system if you take the time to just go ahead and fill out your content form in the very beginning. To do that, we click on this blue edit button here. It opens up the form for us to start filling out. So this is the content that we'll need. And to help you out a little bit, they have information here, the property address, the tax ID number, the subdivision. You don't have to go trying to find that information and copy and paste it into this form. We can go ahead and import that information directly from MLS. So I am going to use this yellow import values button here to do that and pull in some of that property information. So I click on the yellow import values. I'm going to choose to import from our Stellar MLS system. So we're going to click on that. I'm going to type in or copy and paste the MLS number of the property that I'm writing the offer on. Then I'm going to click on this green search button. It's going to search MLS for me and find that property. I confirm that I did put in the correct MLS number. And now I'm going to hit the green choose button. This is showing me all of the information that it is pulling in for me from MLS. So it includes the listing broker and brokerage information, the address, the tax ID, the county, the subdivision, all that good stuff. Now, in order for me to use this data, I have to agree to MLS's terms. So I have to click on that little that little box. And now I'm going to click on the green Start Import button. When I do that, it tells me it's imported all this information. And when I click on the green Done button, you can see that that has now imported to my content form. So I don't have to go and find all of this information and copy and paste it. I just pull it right in from MLS, which is very helpful. So then I do have to type in the rest of the information that I need on this form. So I'm going to first put in my buyer's names. So my buyer is going to be Joseph Blow. And his wife's going to be Jennifer. I can put in their email addresses here now if I want to as well. The selling broker firm, that's us. So this would be Remax Alliance Group, and your agent's name, your email if you want to put it in there. Then we're going to put in the seller's name. Now you notice that it did not pull in the seller's information from MLS. This system uses the standard IDX data that MLS pushes out. And that is the same data that goes to all of the real estate websites. So, the realtor.com and homes.com and all that stuff. And that doesn't contain any seller information. So that's why we don't get the same information when we're pulling in to AppFiles. But we can go ahead and type it in here. So I'm going to put John Doe and his wife, let's say Janet. Now, this information here in the middle is for lease purchases, landlord and tenant, so we're not going to worry about that. Now, our buyer says that they want to offer $500,000 for this property that they're writing the offer on. They're going to give us an initial deposit of $10,000. Let's say they do that today. And then they're going to give us an additional 10, maybe in a few weeks. I think there's only 28 days. And then we're going to try to close this maybe middle of next month. So let's say like that. So now we have entered all of our information on this content form. You'll notice that nowhere on here is a save button. I don't have a save button anywhere. It is constantly saving my data as I'm entering it. So if your laptop battery goes out or the internet goes down at the office or something like that, you won't lose anything. It will have been saving that continuously. Now we can go ahead and click on the red close button, and you can see that all of this data is displayed here. So not only do we never have to type it again, but if we need this information quickly, let's say we need to know when that additional deposit is due, we don't have to go to the contract, open it up, look at that section in the contract. We've got it listed right here. It's easy for us to get access to that information. Also note that this information closes and opens. So if you do have one of those listing files that has a listing content form and a contract content form, you don't have to have a mile of information open here. You can just close it up and then open it whenever you need to see it. Okay, now that we've provided all that information on our content form, the next step is to get our forms. We're going to be filling out forms. We're going to have a contract and maybe some addenda and some other things to fill out for this offer. So in order to get to those forms, we're going to come here to this green button that says Add Forms. And when we click on that button, we now have access to our forms library. So it is the same forms library that I showed you here when you go to print blank forms, but now you're inside a transaction file and you're looking to pull those forms inside your transaction. Now this has, because it's real estate, we have like 50 million bajillion forms. So to help you out a little bit, we have created these form packages so that you don't have to go through all of those forms to pick and choose the ones you need. So right here under the form packages, if you grab the drop down, we have 4 different packages available. There's a contract, listing, a short sale listing package, and a lease purchase. Most of the time you're going to be working from these 2, the regular residential sales and the listing package. I'm going to choose this residential sales contract package. Now, there's about 30 or more forms in this package. That doesn't mean you're going to use them all. What it did is it took that huge forms library with hundreds of forms and it reduced it to just the forms that you're going to need to write an offer. Not all of them you're going to need, but that way you don't have to try to pick and choose between those hundreds of forms. So I'm going to start clicking on the forms that I want to add to my file. I can just click on this little X right here next to the form to add it, or I can click directly on the name of the form. If I'm not sure what form this is, like I understand the name, but I'm not really sure what it looks like, you can go ahead and click on this preview button and it gives you a little preview of that form. But as I mentioned, you're just looking at the first page, a little preview. So if you need to look at the whole form, you're going to want to use that print blank form section on the home page. Now you also have the option to use the as is contract or the standard residential contract for sale and purchase. Don't ask me which one you should use because I don't know, but a lot of times if you're in MLS, it might say that we are selling this property as is, so please write your offer on an as is contract. Otherwise, it would just be, whatever you prefer to use or your clients prefer to use. Today, I'm going to say we're using the standard. So I'm going to click right on the residential contract for sale and purchase. I'm going to put my contract first because I know we always use the contract, right? But now I'm going to go back and see what kind of addenda I might need. So these people are going to get homeowners insurance. So I'm going to grab that addenda. And you can see that I'm not adding these individually. I'm going to wait and add every single form that I know I need to complete. And I'm going to put that in our file as a package of forms. There's a couple of reasons why I want to do that. We'll get to that, but don't add your forms individually. Add them as a package. It's going to help you when you're going through your transaction, and we'll show you how. Okay, so I'm also going to show my buyer their estimated closing costs. So I'm going to add that form to my package. I need this. This is the cover your butt addendum that has to go with every buyer transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that one in there. Now, if you remember, we need this contract information sheet. That's the one that tells accounting how to process the commission. Nobody's going to sign that. The buyer doesn't even need to see it, but I want to fill it out. I want to make sure it's in my file. I don't want to forget it for later. So I'm going to add it to my package. It's going to help me in the long run to add it now. And once it gets filled out, I'll pull it out of there so that the buyers don't see it, and we'll go through that whole process. Put everything right now that you know has to be in that file because it's going to help you fill it out faster and you won't forget to do it later. So I'm going to add that to my package as well. Now, before I click to add this package to my file, I can move things around. So I can drag and drop these if I want them in a different order. Or if I clicked on this homeowner's insurance and then I thought later, oh, wait, that I don't need that for this scenario. You can go ahead and click on this little minus button here and it'll remove the form from the package and put it back over here in the library. Now that I have gathered all my forms together, I am going to click on this green Add Selected Forms at the bottom. Now my forms have been added to my file and they have opened up here so that I can start filling them out. There's a couple important things to know though before you start filling these forms out. The first one is you can see that I have right up here, it's showing how many pages I have in this package. There's 21 pages in here. So you know I have every one of these forms. AppFiles allows you to see 5 pages at a time. So I can scroll through, access the first 5 pages, then I go through the next 5, the next 5, the next 5, etc. There is, I think, 13 pages to our sales contract. So after the sales contract, then there's that homeowners association, homeowners insurance, rider. Here's that form for the estimated closing costs. So we have all the forms, they're just back to back inside this package. Now, when let's say real quick, I have to do something else. I get out of the file for a little bit. When I come back and I look for that package in my forms, because all my forms are going to be over here on the left-hand side, I'm not going to find anything that says package. Where my package is right here. It says residential contract for sale and purchase. When I open it up, it's my package. It's got 21 pages. It's not just the contract, but it named my whole package that because that is the first form that I have in that package. So to help myself out and help the other team members, I'm going to click on this edit button and I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to call it the offer package. And then I'm going to click on this green check mark to save that change. So now when I get back in the file, or anyone else, my team members or anyone else gets into the file, now they can see that I have this offer package here. And then it's not just one form, the residential contract for sale and purchase. Okay, I need to.
Would
No.
can you add a name there too? Like offer package Smith, just.
You can, although you are in that transaction file.
Okay.
So you're not going to have access to this anywhere else except for being inside that transaction.
Inside of Smith transaction file. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to, I really did a bad job. The last time I trained, I didn't prepare everything for the next training. So I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick. I apologize. I want to get rid of this. I also need to get rid of this stuff real quick. So hold on 1 second, bear with me. I should have done this beforehand. I usually do. So I'm going to do this. Now you guys are going to kind of get ahead, but I want to still go through it step by step so that you know what's going on here. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. So we renamed this our offer package. When we're inside here, so another time that you're going to want to rename documents is if the name of the document is just confusing or hard for you to understand. So sometimes those long disclosures, you can just rename it to like homeowner's disclosure or something like that to help you figure it out. The other thing is you might have multiple versions of your forms in your file. An example of that is your residential contract for sale and purchase. You might have one in there that was your offer only, that you filled out and is signed only by your buyers. Then when you sent it to the listing agent to be presented to the sellers, she came back with a counter. So now you might have residential contract for sale and purchase in there that is the counter offer that you need to use to work with your buyers. Then you might have another third residential contract for purchase in there that is your actual executed copy. So you might have 3 contracts in there. One was your first offer, one is a counter offer, the last one is your executed copy. You don't want to have 3 different versions, and every time you need to look at the executed contract, you have to open each one of them up to figure out which one is executed. So by all means, rename those to say offer contract, to say counter offer contract, to say fully executed contract. And that way you can see easily which one of those is in your file, and also your team members, it helps them to see which one is the executed contract as well. So feel free to rename forms anytime that you need to. The other thing that you can do to edit packages, if you come here to your edit pages, you're able to see what I just did, which is split forms. You have 2 buttons to do that. So when you want to take forms out of your package, and we're going to do that here in a little bit, so I'll show you. Now, when you're working with the forms that are in our forms package or in our forms library, they are all ready and prepared. So they have all of the pages. All the pages are in the correct order. Nothing is flipped around or turned upside down. Every contract has every initial and signature field on there in case you're sending something out for electronic signature. Everything's ready for you. But when you're dealing with forms that come from outside of the forms library, forms that other agents are sending you, other things that you're dealing with, maybe you have something that you took to the scanner and you scanned a whole package of documents that way and they came as one big swoop. So sometimes you may have forms that are out of order, or you might have something that was flipped upside down, or you may have something that was in there by accident that you don't even need, or you need to split those apart so that you have, instead of a big clump of forms, you have each individual form. So that's what all of these tools are for. This helps you organize pages so that you can move them around if you need to. Flip things upside down if you need to. This helps you delete individual pages. This helps you to split. So if these 3 pages were an addendum and you need that to be separate, you can check them and you can split these off to and name it as a document. So all of these tools you won't really need to use when you're working with forms from our forms library, but when you're working with forms outside of the library, these are very helpful to make everything look good inside your file. Okay, so we have all of the forms here from our forms library. We want to fill them out. You'll notice that when we go to fill out the fields, there are orange fields and there are blue fields. The orange fields are orange because those fields duplicate throughout your entire package of documents. If you were to type the seller's name right here, you're going to see that that seller's name will now populate in the seller name field on every form that we have in this package. So that's why it's really nice to have your forms in a package, because it helps you to fill them out a lot faster when there are duplicate fields. Now, we don't have to type the seller's name here because we already filled it out in our content form. So everything that we put in that content form that we filled out when we first created the file is just going to now pull and populate onto our field, onto our forms here, everywhere that it's required. So how we do that is, again, we are going to use the yellow import values button. So when I'm ready to fill out forms, click on this yellow import values button. And now we are going to choose the option to import from the info fields. So we click here and it's telling us this is where we're getting the information from the content form, and we click on choose. And now we can see all of this information that's going to pull into our form package that we have created. Now, if you happen to notice that there was a typo when you were typing it into the content form, you typed it incorrectly, you can change it here so that it pulls in correctly onto your form. So you're able to change it. Just note that when you change it here, it does not change it on your original content form. So you need to go back and fix that typo on your content form. So now every time you pull in the information, it's correct going forward.
So if you happen to notice the mistake, like after you've already imported into the contract that you're working on, if you go back to this section and fix it, and then it'll fix it in the contract?
Yes, if you've already imported the information on your contract, if it's one of those fields that it duplicates, you can just change it on the contract and it will change it everywhere else too. But it will not change it on that original content form. So you
Gotcha.
do need to go back and make that change. So going forward, you have the correct information.
Okay.
Now you are able to uncheck something if you don't want to pull that into your form. So let's say that they changed the closing date and you'll go back and change it on the content form later. But right now I'm not going to pull in any closing date. So you can uncheck anything. You can, like I said, make changes here if you need to, and then go back and make the changes on your content form later. I'm going to hit again the green Start Import button. This one takes a smidge longer because it's more info. And then I'm going to click on the green Done. And now you can see that all of that information has just been pulled right onto our contract forms. And not just the contract, but it's now on everything that we have in the package. So not just the contract, it's also on the addendum. It is on that buyer's estimated closing costs. And the great thing is that it is also on that contract information sheet. That's the internal form, but it's almost all filled out for me now. So just by throwing it in that package, I've got it all almost completed. And all I need to do is pull it out before I send it anywhere, which is something we'll do here in a little bit. Okay, so the content form over here doesn't have all of the information that you need for your contract. So you're going to have to go back and fill out some other stuff. So you need to fill out these other fields that would be necessary for your offer, the financing contingency. But once you get everything filled out, the next step is to get signatures on your documents. So there's several different ways to get those signatures on your documents. You can print these forms and have your buyers sign the forms with a pen. A wet signature is still done a lot, and so you can still do that. You can meet with your clients, you can have the paper forms, you can have them review them, and then sign with an initial with a pen. That's just fine. The other thing that you can do, let's say that your clients say, hey, I'm going to go back to my office. Go ahead and send me the paperwork via email. I'm going to print it. I'm going to review it all. I'm going to sign it, and I'm going to scan it back to you. So in that case, you're only sending copies of the documents. If you want to do that, you can click right here, send via email, and you can just send copies of these documents to your buyers or to other people that need copies. Maybe they want to send a copy of these documents to their attorney first for their attorney to review. So send via email is just sending copies of these documents. The other thing that you can do is you can meet with the clients in person, but show them the documents on the website. So sometimes the clients can come into the office. You can go in the conference room, pull up AppFiles on the screen. You can review all of the documents with them, or you can show it to them on your tablet or on your laptop. Review the documents with them. If they're with you and they're in your presence and you're reviewing the documents, you can still have them sign electronically by using these buttons here. So they could click right here to initial the documents and sign them right there with you if you're reviewing them with them personally. The other thing is that sometimes there are places for an agent signature on these documents. For example, the listing agreement is going to have the agent's signature on it. So the agent can just sign right here using this button. You don't have to send it to yourself for signature. You can just open the document and sign it yourself by using that button. Of course, the most popular way of getting the signatures now on documents is to send them for e-signature. And so this system will do that too. And before I demonstrate how that is done, there are a few things that we want to do to this form package before we send it to our buyer if we're going to send it for e-signature. The first thing is let's go ahead and pull out that contract information sheet form that they don't need to see or even sign. We just threw it in there so it would get filled out. So we're going to use the blue split forms button here. These are all the forms that are in my package. I'm going to go ahead and check that contract information sheet, and I'm going to split it out of my package by clicking on the green split selected forms button. Now the form is still in my file. It's right here, my contract information sheet, and it's still filled out, but it's no longer in my package. So just by throwing it in the package and then splitting it out, it's in the file, it's most of the way filled out for me, and I made it easy on myself. Now, the next thing I need to do, in addition to these contract forms and addenda that the buyer is going to review and sign, they also need to review and sign the seller's property disclosure. When you get a new listing, the sellers are going to fill out this disclosure form. It asks them all kinds of questions about the property, you know, the age of the roof, all kinds of stuff. So your buyer needs to review this form while they're reviewing the rest of it, because maybe there's something on that disclosure that's going to keep them from actually submitting that offer. So where do we get that seller's property disclosure? If the listing agent is on the ball, they will have attached that disclosure to the property in MLS. So I know, Jolie, that you haven't done your MLS training yet, and I don't know if Rhea has either, but when you're in a listing, in the listing details page, there's a little paper clip in MLS that you can click on, and it will give you access to any of the documents that have been uploaded and attached to that listing. That's where the seller's property disclosure will be. Your option then is to just download and save that document to your computer. So once you've saved it to your computer, the seller's property disclosure, to get the document into your file, or to get any document that's saved on your computer into this transaction file, you're going to go here to upload files. When you click on this green upload files button, you're going to have the ability to browse the files on your computer. Click browse. When you find the one that is the document that you want, you'll click on that document, you click on open, and then you'll click on start upload. So that it's just like attaching a document to an email. You're going to attach the document here, and then you're going to upload it to your file. When you upload documents to your file, the documents that are saved on your computer, they're going to show up right here under uploaded paperwork. So you'll see that seller's property disclosure right here under that section. Now there is another way to get documents, external documents into your file without saving them on your computer. So a lot of times you're going to get documents emailed to you. So this might be a document that you know, somebody signed with a pen, and you went to the scanner and scanned it to your email. So now you have a copy in your email. Maybe it's a document that was sent to you by another agent and you need to get it into your file. You do not need to download and save those documents to your computer in order to upload them. You are able to use this file mailbox address and actually just email those documents directly into the file. So here's how that process works. We have an email that has a document attached. This one came from the scanner. I scanned some documents, and now I want to get those documents into my file. I don't have to download and save those documents to my computer. I'm going to go to my file. I'm going to find this file mailbox. Every transaction file has its own unique file mailbox. It's like an email address for that particular transaction. So I'm going to find this, and I'm going to hit the copy button to copy that email address. Then I'm going to go find the email again, and I'm going to forward this email. So now I'm forwarding it, and in the to section, I'm going to right click and paste that address from the file that I copied. So in essence, the email that has the documents are attached is going to be forwarded to this email address. And when you hit the send button and you come back into the file, you're going to have to hit the refresh button maybe a couple of times. When I do it, I click and click and click and click and click on there until it finally shows up. And when it does, it's going to show up in this section called emailed paperwork. And the document's going to be called whatever it was called when it was attached to that email. So this is a case where I'm definitely going to want to rename that so I know what this document is. So there's two ways, again, to get documents into your file. You can upload something that's saved to your computer, or you can email something that is attached to an email. Now, the other thing to know when you send emails into your file, not only does it grab the document and populate it here for you, but it also keeps a copy of the email itself. So if you want to save email correspondences in your file, forward those emails to the file mailbox address, and it'll keep a copy of the email. So when your seller says, sends you an email and says, yeah, go ahead and reduce the price of my listing in MLS, you can go ahead and forward that email into your file so you have a copy of that email in the file to keep as proof that your seller said that.
Oh, that's smart.
Now, as you rack up a bunch of emails, if you're holding them in here, if you come up here to the top to the activity log, you'll be able to see all of the emails. If you click on here, every email that you have either sent out of or sent into your transaction file. In addition to emails, if your client sends you a text message and you want to keep a copy of that text message in your file, you can forward that text message to this file mailbox as well. So on your phone, you would just press to forward the text message. You would then type in this address as the address to forward it to, and it will also populate in your file. It'll look like this because it has a TXT extension. So you'll have a copy of the text message in your file as well. Okay, so now that we've gone over the two different ways to get documents into your file, we want to look at that seller's property disclosure that we brought in, because this was filled out by the seller. Your buyer needs to review it, and your buyers are going to have to initial the bottom of every page and sign the last page. Now, this was a document that we brought into the transaction. So it's like a copy of a document. There are no fields here that anyone can fill out, and there certainly are no fields for the electronic signatures and initials. When you look at anything from our forms library, because it's already in that library, it's already prepared for electronic signatures and initials. So this is where those electronic signatures and initials go. The copies of documents that we bring into the transaction do not have any fields for electronic signatures and initials. So we need to put them there. If we're going to get an electronic signature on this document, we have to put the fields on there for those electronic signatures and initials to populate. So,
I'm gonna turn off my video for a quick second, but I'm not lost. I didn't want you to think.
okay, good. All right. So in order to place those initial and signature fields, you're going to click on this blue edit button that's up here in the corner. Every one of the documents is going to have that blue edit button. The first time you click on that blue edit button, you're going to see a message pop up that says, we are now converting this from a document to an editable form. And when that conversion is done, it will open up and you'll find your little toolbox here on the left that allows you to edit the document. So just to let you know, in addition to just placing signature and initial fields, you're able to make strike throughs on your documents. So if, for example, you're preparing a counter offer, you can strike through an old price, and then you're able to add text and put the new price for the counter there as well. So these are your strike through buttons. You have a single line, which obviously just puts one line here. You also have a multi-line that allows you to strike through an entire paragraph. It'll put a big X through a paragraph. Today, for this scenario, we need to add initial fields for our buyers to initial every page of this disclosure, and then we need to add a signature fields as well. So to add the initial fields, we're going to come over to our toolbox and we're going to find the add initials section. Now remember, this only needs to be done if they're signing everything electronically. If they're going to sign with a pen, or you're sending them the documents that they're going to print and sign and scan back to you, you don't need to go through these processes. We're going to select who we want to initial this document. So we're going to click the drop down, and here are all of our choices for those signatures. So there's a lot of different people that can be initialing and signing this document. Now, if you don't see your option here, so if there's, we have two buyers in our scenario. So here's buyer 1 and buyer 2. But if you have 3 buyers, there's no buyer 3 option. So you can come all the way down to the bottom. You can create any role that you need. So if I need buyer initials 3, I can create that role if I need it. Right now, I'm going to start with buyer 1. So here is, I'm going to click to choose buyer initials 1. Now I'm going to check here so that it displays the date. Everything on a sales contract jumps off of the execution dates. So we need to know the timeline of when all of these, the initial offer, the counter offer, the executed documents, when all of these are signed. So it's important that you check to display those dates when you're initialing and signing. Then to place the initials on the page, we're first going to click right here where it says place initials. You'll see that turned green. Now when I move my cursor to my document, I have this crosshairs that's going to tell me where the initial field is going. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of my document, and I'm going to click right here to place that initial field right here on the document where it's supposed to go. Now, if I didn't quite do that right, I've done this a million times, so I know exactly where to put those little crosshairs. But if you need to move it, you can click on it again. That made this orange. And now I can use my mouse to drag this anywhere that I need to go and let go. And now that I'm done editing that, I need to click anywhere else on the document and it will put it back to yellow. Now, if I needed to delete this, I again need to click on it to make it orange, and then I come up to the top and I can delete that element if I need to. We're going to follow the same process for buyer initials 2. So I'm going to go back up to the drop down. Now I'm going to choose buyer initials 2. The date is still checked. I'm going to click on place initials. I'm going to go back down on my document where those initial fields go and click. And now I have my second buyer initials right there. This here is where the date displays. So when they sign it, it will automatically display the date here. They're right on top of each other. If that bothers you and you want to move it, you can click on just the date field and drag it over so that they're not right on top of each other. Click again to stop the editing. So if you want to, you can move those date fields independent of the initial field. Now we would go through the process of placing those initial fields on every page of this seller's disclosure, including the last one, but the last page also needs the buyer's signatures. So now we have to go to the add signatures section of our toolbox. We're going to grab the drop down. We're going to grab the first buyer, buyer 1, and just like we did with initials, we check to display the date. We're going to click on place signature. We're going to go down here in the signature field and we're going to click, and now the signature field is there. Now in this scenario, there is a specific place for the date to display, the date of their signature. So we're going to grab just the date and move it over here so that it displays in the correct place once they have signed the document. There's also a place for their name to be printed. Because this is a copy of a document, there's not going to be anywhere for them to actually type in their name. So we're going to do it for them. I'm going to come up to my toolbox and I have the ability here to add text to my document. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to come down and where I need to add the text and I'm going to click. And now the box opens for me to add that text. So I think this was Joe Blow. And now I'm going to click on create. And now the text displays right there. So you can add text to the document that way if you need to. Now that I'm done putting all the initial and signature fields on my document, I can close the editing by clicking on this red close button. And now you can see here's my signature field, here's the text that I added, and then you can also see my initial fields have been added here too. So we have now prepared this document for your buyers to electronically initial and sign it. If you happen to try to do a signature request and you're not able to do that, this is gray. It's because there are no initial and signature fields on that document. So it tries to remind you, don't forget that you need to put those initial and signature fields on there in order for them to be signed and initialed electronically. So now we're going to close out. So we have prepared this disclosure for their initials and signatures, but I don't want to send it to them separately from the rest of the documents. So I want to add it to my package that I created earlier. So in order to do that, up here in the upper right-hand section, we have a toolbox, paperwork tools. We're going to click on merge paperwork right here. And when we do that, the box opens and it gives us access to all of the documents and forms that we have in our file. So first, I'm going to choose that offer package that I've already created. And next, I'm going to create that seller's property disclosure or click it to add it to my package. So now there's my package, my seller's property disclosure. I can click here to merge those items. Now that I've done that, if I go to my forms, you can see that the first forms were there and now it is added that seller's property disclosure to my package. I don't want to send these separately. I want to send the buyers everything in one email, in one package to make it easier so that nothing gets lost or they don't forget to sign something. It's all together in one place. Okay, so now my package is done. I'm ready to get the buyer's signatures and they're going to sign this electronically. So to do that, we're going to go through the process of electronic signatures. The first thing you're going to want to do is click on this blue request signature button. Now remember, if that button is gray, and that would happen, let's say you were sending somebody, let's say that the other agent sends you a document that your buyers need to sign. It's an external document. It wasn't in our forms library. You brought it into the file. You're trying to send it for electronic signature, and this is gray. You're not able to click it. That's because you haven't gone through the process of adding those signature and initial fields to it so that they can be signed electronically. But ours is blue, so we're going to go ahead and click on it. This is basically giving you information. The information says that everyone who is signing this document has to receive their own email signature request. So in our scenario, we have a husband and a wife. Husband needs to sign the documents and the wife needs to sign the documents. We are going to prepare a signature request, send it to the husband, then we have to go back and create a separate signature request and send that to the wife. So both of them are getting their own signature request. Now, both of those can be sent to the same email address. So if you have a husband and wife that share an email address, then you can send the husband's and the wife's both to that same email address, but you're still sending out two signature requests. Okay, so we're going to click on the green. Go ahead.
Does this, can you set it up for the order in which it's received like you can in DocuSign, or does it all just go out at one time?
You're going to, it will, as soon as you create a signature request, it's going to send it out immediately. So the husband will get his first probably, and then he can be looking at that while you're preparing the one for the wife. Although it only takes seconds to prepare a signature request. So it will only be, probably, depending, like maybe 30 seconds before the one for the wife goes out.
Gotcha. So it's because in DocuSign they have the little tab where the first person has to sign it before it goes to the next person. So that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yep. Nope. We're not doing it that way. Each one is getting their own separate request, and they can sign it in their own time.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on the green Start a Signature Request. The first thing we're going to do is tell AppFiles who the first person is that's going to be signing, or who we're setting this up for first. So let's go ahead and set up Joseph's first. We're going to type his name in there. Now, if you didn't know that he uses a middle initial for his legal signature, or maybe he's a junior or doctor or something like that, don't worry about that, because he's going to be able to access this and change it. So when you send the signature request to him, if he wants to add his middle initial or a suffix or a prefix or something like that, he's going to be able to do that. These are all of the documents on in the package that have signature fields. So because we used the contract from our forms library, it has everybody's signature field there. So we need to tell AppFiles where is Joseph signing on these documents. So we are going to activate the first buyer's signature for him by clicking this box. And when we check the box, it then went ahead and activated that buyer's signature on all the rest of those documents. So we're activating this signature for him. Same thing with initials. We're going to click to activate the buyer one initials for Joseph, and it went ahead and activated those on the rest of the documents. We're going to go through the entire process of sending this signature request out to Joseph, and then we're going to come back and click on Start a Signature Request and do the same thing for Jennifer, or whatever her name was. So when we do that, we won't be able to activate buyer one signatures because we've already activated them for Joseph. For Jennifer, we'll click to activate the buyer signature 2 when we're setting up her signature request. Okay, once we've activated these, we're going to click on the green Next button. Sometimes on our forms, there are fields where our clients can add or type in information. On the residential contract for sale and purchase, there is a place where the buyer could type in their mailing address. If you want them to go ahead and be able to do that while they're signing the documents, you need to check this box and activate that field for them so that they're able to type in the information. If you don't check in the box and activate the field, they'll see it there, but they won't be able to type anything on there. So if you want them to be able to type, go ahead and activate it. Over here is the option for us to require that they have to type in that information. So if there is something that you absolutely have to have your client fill out, you can check here to require it. When you're sending this signature request, if you require something has to be filled out, when they click and open up the documents, the very first thing it's going to do is take them to that place, and it's going to say, you need to fill this out. And they will have to fill it out before it even allows them to start signing the documents. So I'm not going to check to require the mailing address. That's not something that I need, but I'm going to go ahead and activate that so that they can type it in if they want to. Now, sometimes you're going to have a form that is completely fillable. For example, those seller's property disclosures. We have a form in our forms library that is the seller's property disclosure client fillable. And when you send that to your sellers, they would be able to fill out the entire disclosure as well as sign it electronically. However, you still need to make sure that when you get to this section that you activate all of the fields on that form, because if you don't, they still won't be able to type it even though it's a client fillable form. So to do that, instead of having to check every single box and make sure that you don't accidentally miss one, just use the check all option next to the form name. When you click on check all, it just activates every single field in that form so that they're all activated for somebody to fill out. Okay, once we've activated any fields for our clients, we're going to click on this green next button. Now, this is the email that goes out that requests their signature. So you can type their email address here. If you already typed it in your content form, then it will be available for you to choose in the dropdown. So either use the dropdown if you've already got their email address here, or type it in. If you type the address in now, then it will save it for you. So the next time you need to send them something, it will be available to you in that dropdown. You can change this is the default email, but you can change it. So if you want to change the subject line, you're able to do that. If you need to add instructions, you can do that. If you want to change anything in this email, you can modify it however you like. Just make sure that you don't do anything to this right here, because once you send the email, it populates the link that they click on to access the documents. So if you take this out, then there will be no link for them to get the documents. So do whatever you want to this email, except don't do anything to this right here. Once we have the email looking the way we want it, we're going to click the next button again. Now, you will automatically, because you set up the request for a signature and you sent it out, so once the signatures are completed, you will automatically get a notification, the email that lets you know that they've been completed. But maybe you want someone else on the team or someone else who is a user on the file to also be notified when those documents are signed. So in that case, you would be able to check their name, anyone who has access to your file, and you would be able to let them also get a notification when the documents are signed. Once you've gotten everybody notified, you're going to click on the green request signature button, and that sends that signature request out to that person so that they can sign the documents. Now I'm going to show you what that looks like on the other end for people that are receiving those signature requests. So I've got a signature request set up already. It's important to know that the signature request from will have your name. So it will say it's from you when it's in their inbox. However, it is not from your email address. It comes from AppFiles. So if somebody is searching for this email, if you said I sent it to you and they don't see it immediately in their inbox, they can do a search for emails from your name, but they shouldn't do a search for emails from your email address. This is the subject line that you had prepared in the original email that we sent out. Here's the email that came from AppFiles, and there is that link for them to click on and access the documents. So when they click on that link, they are able to see all the documents, and they're able to access all of the initial and signature fields that you activated for them. Now, they have a couple of different options for signing and initialing their documents. They can go through every single page. When they get to a field that they need to sign or initial, they can click on it and place their initials there. They can do that throughout the entire package of documents. And hopefully they are reviewing these documents and not just signing them without reading them. But the other good way to do it is by using the big green button at the top of the page. Since we have a package of documents here, there's 4 or 5, however many forms ended up being in this package, they can sign and initial all of the places pretty easily with just one function. So if they click here on this big green button, they see that there are 13 places in this whole package that need initialing, 4 places that need signing. And if they click on these buttons, they can sign all of them and initial them all in one fell swoop. So if they wanted to complete all the signatures, they could click on this sign all button. They have to accept that they're signing all 4 places. So they click on that, click on accept. Now, this system understands that I was on a computer when I clicked on the link to access the documents. So therefore, I probably don't have the option. I probably don't have a touch screen where I can actually sign my name. So they give me the option here of choosing a font that represents my signature. However, if I have one of those great laptops that has a touch screen, I could come to this tab here, which gives me a line that I can use to sign my actual name. They could also sign it with the mouse, but it looks terrible. So signing with, you know, their finger or stylus or something like that would be the best option. Now, if they opened your email on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, and they clicked on the link, because the system knows that they're on a mobile device and that they do have a touch screen, it will automatically open to here where they're able to sign the documents. But if they wanted to, they could also come to this tab and use a font if they prefer. So both options are always available, but it will automatically open here if they're on a computer, and it will automatically open here if they're on a mobile device. I like to make sure you know this because sometimes you might get clients that reach out to you and say, hey, I don't like this font thing. I want to sign my own name on my documents, in which case you can tell them, because you understand how this works, review the documents on your computer because they're easy to see that way. But when you're ready to sign them, open up my email on your phone and you'll get a line that allows you to actually sign your name. So just keep that in mind, that these options are available to them when they're signing their documents. Now, if they go through the process, it's going to go ahead and put their signatures and their initials everywhere on the form. Once everything is signed, they will then get copies of their signed documents automatically. So you don't need to send them copies. They get those copies themselves. When the documents are signed, like I said, you'll also get an email notification that lets you know that they've been signed. However, we wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for that email, and sometimes it takes forever to come, and we're wondering what the heck is going on with this signature request. Why haven't they signed it yet? So if you go into the file, you are able to see any document that is out for signature has a little icon here that looks like a pen. This is going to tell you that this document's out for signature. So you can open the document. And now, because it's out for signature, we have a tab here called Active Signature Request. And when we click on that, we're able to scroll down and we are able to see everything that's going on with this signature request. By the way, that is the exact same information. If you remember, I showed you this signature request tab on the home page. You could also do that without going into the transaction file, and you get the same information about that signature request. So they're both the same information, just 2 different places to get it. Now, when you look at this, the first thing that I'm going to look at is this right here. This is going to tell you if they have ever clicked on the link to access the documents. So you can see here, I just clicked on that link. It told me when I did it. So at least I know that they got the email, they were able to access the documents. Maybe it's just taking them a long time to review them all, or maybe they got interrupted or something like that. But at least it lets me know that they got the email and they have accessed the documents. From here, you're able to see here if they've completed any of the signatures or the initials. However, if they have not activated or clicked on the link to access the documents, maybe they didn't get the email or maybe they can't find the email. The email does come from a third party. And so sometimes email service providers will throw that email directly into spam or to trash or to something like that. So I'm going to reach out to my clients and I'm going to say, hey, I sent you that email to sign those documents. Did you receive the email? Because I really need you to sign those as soon as you can. If they come back to you and say, no, I don't see that email, I can't find it anywhere, the first thing I'm going to do is come here and resend this request email. When you resend the email, you're sending the exact same email that you've already sent. And most of the email service providers will say, okay, maybe this wasn't spam. We'll put it in their inbox. You might need to send it, like AOL is really bad. If they have an AOL account, it's going to keep pushing it to trash. You might have to send it a couple of times. The other thing that you can do is just tell them, search your emails, search your spam folder, your trash folders for emails from me. And remember, it's from your name, not your email address. They'll probably be able to find it that way. You might also want to confirm that you sent it to the correct email address. You know, things that you might have thought something was spelled differently, or maybe they forgot to tell you that there was a 1 here. So it's actually like kcox1@alliancegroupfl.com. Now, sending this email signature request to a specific email address, there's cookies and there's IP addresses and things that help to verify a signature request is real and it wasn't signed by somebody else. So unfortunately, if you sent this to an incorrect email address, there's no easy way to just now send it to a new email address. You have to cancel the request and set it back up and send it to the correct email address. It's just important for the signature verification process. Now, let's say you've tried all of this. You've resent it a few times. You've asked them to look in their email. You verified the email address. You're sending it to the correct one, but they just can't seem to find this email in their inbox. That's okay. Right here, when you created the email signature request, the link that is in that email that you sent them for them to access those documents is right here for you. So you could copy this email, this link, I guess, and it tells you you can paste it into any email. So you can now send them a direct email with this link, paste it into your email and send it to them directly. And then most likely they're going to be able to get it directly from you. Another scenario might be that maybe they're somewhere where they can't get their email. Maybe their email's down or the app isn't working on their phone or they can't get their data right now. The internet's down, whatever it is, you could text this link to them. So you could copy and paste it into a text message and text the link to them and they would be able to click on it and open the documents on their phone. So all of these are tools to help you get this signature request and get these documents to them for signature. Okay, so that is how we send out the documents for electronic signature. Like I said, once they come back signed, then you will have copies of those. And by the way, you're not going to have 2 documents in there, one with the husband's signature and one with the wife's signature. They place those signatures on the same document. So you'll have one document with both signatures. Now that your documents have been signed, the last step is to send that offer over to the listing agent so that they can present it to the sellers. So if you remembered in our offer package, the listing agent doesn't need to see everything that the buyer signed and initialed. So my advice is once everything is completed and signed and initialed, there's no need now to keep it in a package. The best way to work with those documents going forward is to pull the whole package apart and now you have a list of individual documents. Because what you're going to do now is you're going to come here in the upper right hand corner to your AppFile tools and you're going to compose an email. You're going to send this to the listing agent. Because you pulled in that information from MLS, you already have the listing agent's email address in your drop down here. So here's the listing agent's email address. You'll be able to put your subject offer for 1234 Test Avenue. Your message would be, here's the offer. Call me if you have any questions. You have until 5 o'clock to accept or what have you. And now you're going to click on this blue add attachments. These are all of the documents in your file. You're just going to click to attach any of the documents that that agent needs and click on finished. And now you have the email with the documents attached that you can just send off. Again, you can use this if you want to send copies of a executed contract to a title company or to the mortgage broker, you know, any other documents you need to email out. You can either use the compose an email if you want to attach multiple documents, or inside any document, you're able to send a copy of just that document by using this button as well. Okay, so we have created the documents, we created the file, we filled out our content form, we brought in the forms from the forms library, we also prepared the seller's disclosure, added that to the package, we sent it out for electronic signature, it's come back, we sent out the offer to the listing agent. So we went through that whole scenario. One more thing I like to talk about is organization of your file. So you're going to be putting everything in here. You guys are members of teams. You're going to want to have as much information in this file so that everybody on the team has access to it. That might include mortgage approval letters. That might include communications with that might include a lot of different things. So your file might get all kinds of convoluted with all kinds of different documents in here. So we talked about renaming documents. That's an easy thing to do to help organize your file. But you also might notice that there are sections here. You're able to put your documents in different sections. Most of the documents are going to show up in this general paperwork section. Remember, I told you also have an uploaded paperwork section and an emailed paperwork section, but there are other sections that are available to you as well. So when you have a document open, here is the section that it's currently displayed in. You can grab the drop down and put it in other sections if you want to, or you can create a section to put it in. A good example of when you want to put documents in sections is if you have a listing file, you might get several offers on that listing. You might get multiple offers that only one of them is going to be accepted by the seller, or maybe you're getting them consecutively, but you have to keep all of those in the file. And maybe you don't want them all mixed up with all the rest of the stuff in your file. So any of the documents that are for a specific offer, you could open up that document. You could go to the section drop down and create a section called Dead Jones Offer. And now all of the paperwork associated with that offer goes in that section. So now you have a section in here over here called Dead Jones Offer. And what's great is you can just close that up. So now you don't even have to look at that. It's not mixed up with the rest of your paperwork. I've closed that section off. The paperwork's in here, but it's not mixed up with any of the rest of my stuff. If I need to get it, I can open it up and grab that paperwork in there. So remember that you can rename documents, you can move them in different sections in order to keep your file organized. And when you're on a team and a lot of different people are getting into those files, it's always helpful to everybody if it's organized. So the next thing now that we need to talk about, and the last thing, luckily for you guys, is we're going to talk about turning in your files, file review, and file compliance. So the broker's required to review your files. We need to make sure that all those required documents are in there. Everything that's on that listing information sheet and the contract information sheet that's applicable. So before you turn in your file for review, you might want to do a few things. If you haven't already done so, you might want to pull apart your packages. That way your administrator can find all of the documents without having to go in and look at all these packages and see if the required documents are within these packages. So it's a good idea to split apart all your forms and have them all as individual forms before you turn in your file. Remember that, by the way, these things that I'm talking about for preparing your file are not required. You don't have to do any of these things. If you just turn the file in, that is good, but it might be helpful to you and helpful to your administrator if you do some of these things to prepare. The next thing you could do is start putting documents into sections. we have a section called in the dropdown called the broker contract docs and the broker listing docs. This is where a little section that we've carved out of your file that lists or has all of those documents that we require, so that if a manager gets into your file or someone from the company and they need to find those documents, there's a little section where they are and they're not mixed up with everything else. So before you turn in your file, you can start moving the documents that are on that checklist into the sections called broker contract docs and broker listing docs. Again, it's not required, but it might be helpful to you so you have one place to look and kind of check off in your mind that all of the required documents are in the file. Now, the process for turning in your file is pretty easy, but it's going to be probably one of the most important things that I tell you today, because if your file isn't reviewed, when you go to closing, you have a closing, or your team member has a closing, you're going to be so excited, right? Oh, yay, I've got a closing, I've got my commission, and you're going to turn in your commission check. If you're getting a check to your office administrator along with all the rest of your closing documents, and the first thing they're going to say is, well, this file hasn't been reviewed. We haven't reviewed the file. So immediately that puts a halt on any commission processing. The file has to be reviewed. If there's anything missing from the file, one of two things is going to happen. One, you're going to have to go back to your clients after we've already had a closing and ask them to sign some documents, which is kind of embarrassing. Or the sales manager has to look at the file and approve the processing of the commission without one of those required documents. And I can tell you that that doesn't happen very often. So you want to make sure that your file has been reviewed and that your file is complete and ready for closing before you go to that closing, so that everything after that processes smoothly. So the process for turning in your file for review, right here, if you remember, it was our file type. When we created the file, we created it as a buyer file or a seller file in our agent workspace. So what we're going to do is now change that. We're going to take it out of our agent workspace. So we're going to click on the blue change button that is right there with our file type. When we do that, you'll see that that whole section opens back up again. We are just going to be concerned with this file type. We're going to access the dropdown, and now we're going to take it out of the agent workspace and we're going to put it in the broker admin inbox. We're going to put it in as a new listing or a new pending, and you will have the name of your administrator for your office here with that. So in our scenario, we wrote a contract, so we have a new pending, and we're going to click on new pending right now, change that file type to a new pending. And then we're going to click on the green Save Changes button. Let's go through that one more time. Again, we're going to go to the file type. We're going to click the blue change button. In the file type section from the drop down, we're going to click new listing or new pending under the broker admin inbox. And now we're going to click on the green Save Changes button. When you click on that green Save Changes button, your administrator is automatically going to get an email that says you turned in this file. So you don't have to worry about notifying anybody. Once you change the file type, that notification automatically happens. Now the administrator can go in and start to review the file. A quick note, when you have a listing file, if you remember, I told you have to turn it in as a new listing so that those listing documents can be reviewed. And then you have to turn it in again when you get a contract on that listing so that those documents can be reviewed for the contract. You're not going to be able, once you turn this in as a new listing, you can't go back and now turn it in as a new pending as well. The system doesn't allow for that. So if you want to let your administrator know that you now have a contract that needs to be reviewed, you can go ahead here to the green Create and Update button. You can tell your administrator, I have a contract on this listing now. Click on her name and click on Create Update. That sends her a message and lets her know that you now have a contract that needs to be reviewed for that listing file. Everybody got all that so far? Any questions? Okay, we're good. All right, so once the administrator gets into the file, she's going, and I say she because unfortunately right now we have no male administrators. So she's going to review your file, And of course, she's going to be looking for all of those documents that are on that checklist. Not only is she going to look for that document itself, but she's going to open all the documents. She's going to make sure that those documents have all the right pages. So all 13 pages of the contract are there. She's going to make sure that all the initials, the required initials are on the contracts, all the required signatures. She's going to make sure that the sellers and the buyers' names read the same on all the documents. She's going to make sure that the property address is the same on all the documents. So she's really like a separate set of eyes just to review everything and make sure that everything is complete. When you turn in your file to your administrator, from that point forward, they are in control of the type or the status of your file. So once you turn it in, once it's been reviewed, it is now going to be marked by your administrator as a current file, active listing, or an active pending file. That's the status that you're hoping for. You want that current status. But if something needs to be done on the file, they will mark it as an incomplete file, as an incomplete listing or pending. If the administrator marks your file as incomplete, of course, you're notified of all of these things. They will also create a task in the file that lets you know what needs to be done to make the file active. They might also move documents into a section called incomplete. So let's say you had your contract, and your contract, after going back and forth between all the parties, somehow ended up missing page 2. Then she's going to move that contract to the incomplete section. And she's going to create a task for you that lets you know that you still need to get page 2 into the file. So when you come back, first of all, you're going to be notified that she marked the file as incomplete status. You're going to come into the file. You're going to see the contract here in the incomplete section, and you're going to see a task that lets you know that page 2 is missing and that you need to get page 2 into the file. Once you've done that, because your goal, remember, is to have an active current file. So you get page 2, you bring it into the file. Now you need to let your administrator know that you've completed that task so that that file type can be made as current. Although most people want those current statuses, the real reason that they want to complete the tasks is because during the course of the transaction, until you complete a task, the agent is going to receive a reminder notice every so often that there's an open task on this file. And multiple files mean multiple reminder notices. So we call those the little love notes. And they keep getting those love note emails until that task is complete. So even though you want to have a current file, what you really want is to stop those stupid emails from coming to you. So come into your file. Once you've got page 2 in here, come to this task section here and just go ahead and check that you completed the task. And it will say you completed this, and you say, yep, okay, I completed this task. And now once you check that, automatically your administrator gets a notification that you have completed this task. They'll come back in, they'll look at it, they'll make sure it has been done, and they'll go ahead and change that status of your file to a complete file. If you need to talk to your administrator, ask a question, or maybe clarify something that they're asking for, the create an update again. This is sending a message. This is sending a message to any of the users in your file about this particular file. It's also a great way to communicate with your team members. So if you need a team member to look at the file or something in the file, you can create the message, you can check their name, and it'll send them an email. But what's great is in the email is a link to the file. So that's why it's nice to do it inside the file, because they'll get the email, they'll have the link, they can click right on the link, open up the file, and look at what you're asking them to look at. So creating an update will send an email notification, and it has a link to that file inside that email notification. Then of course, all the updates are also kept right inside the file. So if you're a team member and you're getting in the file, you're able to see communications between team members, between the staff and the team members. So all of that communication stays within the file.
Thank you. Delivery.
Okay.
Somewhere straw, but I have no idea where it is.
All right, so that was basically the whole process. Your goal is to have those complete files. Once you have a closing, you just turn in all your closing paperwork to your administrator and they'll take care of marking the file closed, getting all the required documents. And what's great is as soon as your administrator marks the document as closed, accounting gets a notification and they start processing the commission. So everything is done within this transaction management system, the file system. Now, I gave you a lot of information today. I don't expect that you're now an expert on AppFiles. So I am always here for support, for help, for questions. You have great support people on your team and in your office to help you as well, but you are always able to reach out to me. So don't worry if you're trying to work in the system and it's an evening or a weekend. If you have questions or you're having problems, please still reach out to me. I'm happy to help you out because I know you guys are doing business, not 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Karen, can I ask a question?
Of course, yes.
I haven't been in there enough to look, but is there a help section with little reviews if we want to do that over the weekend or?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
every time you're in a document, there is a help button in the document that shows you different things that you might need. These are little videos. So, and there's also like PDFs that will show you how to do something in that document. You also have an AppFile support that you can get to from anywhere in the whole system. Is always got the AppFile support here. You can call them. They are I don't know if they're 24/7, but they're open every single day. Monday through Friday. I'm sorry, I take that back. But you can also fill out if something went wrong. You can fill this out and send it to them as well. Now, also, just to point out, we went through some features inside the files that are also available to you on this home page. So, for example, we talked about that little email address for each file that you can forward your emails or documents attached to emails. Those email addresses are right here on the home page. So I got something I want to go into this file. I don't have to open up the file if I don't want to. I just grab this email address and forward it in there. Also, don't forget all of your tasks for all of your files are available here, and you can mark off those tasks as completed from the home page as well. Okay, so of course you're going to have questions. Please reach out if you have any questions. Sometimes I get people that say, is there an easier way to do this? So I haven't told you every single thing that's available in this system. Sometimes there is an easier way to do something. So if you think there might be, just reach out to me. I can help you try to figure out a faster way or a shortcut or an easy way to do something. Anything that I showed you today is the easiest way to do that. But sometimes there are other things that you might want to do. So you can always reach out and say, hey, Karen, is there some way to create this, or is there some way to do this? And, I might be able to help you figure out how to do that. All right, ladies, you're done for today. Jolie, I will be reaching out to you for a second training session. So that'll be done. I'll probably reach out today or Monday. And you guys down in Inglewood, you guys have a good day and let me know.
Thanks so much, Karen. Thank you.
All right.
So much for your time.
Absolutely. And if you guys need anything, just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You
You
too.
too.
All right. Bye-bye.